Good evening, everybody. My name is Brooke Ramsey, and I'm here to present to you a presentation over comprehension strategies for note taking. And give me a second, I'm going to share my screen. That pulled up for you guys. Okay. Empowering student thinking, comprehension strategies for note taking. So first, before we get into anything having to do with the presentation, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Brooke Ramsey, a junior majoring in history slash secondary education at the Alabama State University. I am from Laverne, Tennessee, and I'm here to present to you a very informative presentation over comprehension strategies for note taking. So on our agenda today, we will talk about why note taking matters, specifically through grades fourth through eighth grade. And that's not saying that note taking is not important past eighth grade, because I'm still taking notes to this day. And it's very important for me to be able to grasp my notes and understand my notes. So, not saying that, but that's just what we're going to focus on today is fourth through eighth grade. So, before getting into our objectives, I just wanted to touch on a little bit. So, I've been doing my observations, and I have actually been in an eighth grade world history classroom. And after talking to some educators, they have really found their students not reading, so overall, not comprehending what lessons are about. And I really feel like that is because we are in such a digital age nowadays. So it's so easy to throw a question into ChatGPT and get a response back and then let that be the reason. But they're not gaining anything from this because when you get to the test, you can't use ChatGPT. So it's very important for us to be able to learn comprehension based strategies specifically for note taking. So the students don't have to run to ChatGPT to get the information that they need. They just have the information right there in front of them. They have it in their minds because they've taken notes the right way. So it's important for us to gauge what strategies that we need to use in our lessons so they can gain everything they need to gain. So, number one, our first objective, identify and explain comprehension based note taking strategies that support student understanding and retention across all areas of study in grades fourth through eighth. Number two, explore and model a variety of comprehension based note taking strategies. Number three, implement a plan that includes strategies that we have discussed by the end of the presentation. Now, let's break the ice. Talk with the person on your left and describe your experiences in note taking as a student. Did you feel like you retained information? What didn't help you retain information? So, I'm going to use me as an example. So, in my experience as with note taking as a student, I feel like I retain information the best by handwriting my notes. And like I said, we're in a digital age, so typing the notes is very easy. It's very just get it out the way. But me personally, some way that I really gather my information the best and remember my information is by writing it down. So, along with writing down my notes, when I look back over and I review, I will tend to highlight things that stand out to me. So, I'll highlight a name in orange, I'll highlight a event in pink, and I'll highlight a time in yellow. So, along with highlighting, it's important for me to be able to summarize my notes, summarize what this, who this person is, why they are important, what they did. So, especially like I said, I will be using a lot of history examples throughout this presentation because that's something that I am involved with a lot of the time. So, I really tend to focus on with my notes and when I look at them, quizzing myself. So who, what, when, where, why. So for example, let's say I'm looking at my notes, we're talking about the Civil War. I look at my notes, I see I've highlighted Abraham Lincoln in orange. So my who, is Abraham Lincoln. So what did he do that was significant? What did he contribute that was so important? The Emancipation Proclamation. So who? Abraham Lincoln. What? The Emancipation Proclamation. So what is the Emancipation Proclamation? The Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves in rebelling states. Okay, so who? Abraham Lincoln. What? The Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves in the rebelling states. Who, what, when? 1863. Who, what, when, where? Washington, D.C. is where this document was forged. Who, what, when, where? Why did he form the Emancipation Proclamation? Why did he forge the Emancipation Proclamation? Because he wanted to put an end to the Civil War. So that's something that when you go through and you quiz yourself on your, well, me personally, when I quiz myself on my notes, that's something that helps me lock in what my notes are talking about and helps me remember things in preparation for my exam. So what didn't help me retain my information? So what didn't help me retain my information, let's say I just had the textbook, especially in high school, I feel like some um, of my teachers tended to just give us a textbook, get your notebook, write things that stand out to you in the book. I don't understand, like, that's not how I understand things. So just, I will tend to look at the book and just copy down what was in the book in my notepad. Like, that's not something that really helped me, was looking at the textbook and then just writing my notes, because I'm not remembering, I'm not making any sort of connections between what I'm reading. So that did not help me retain information at all. So moving on, some research that I did. So first of all, in taking notes, it goes beyond writing down what you've heard and what you've seen, because you can write down something and completely forget it tomorrow. So in taking your notes, it is important for you to understand what you're writing down, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, and processing it to capture key points involved in the material that you are writing about. So, note taking is essential for many reasons. So, first of all, according to Kira, 1991, note taking increases students' attention during lessons and enables them to code things taught during lessons into long-term memory. So, what goes along with them paying attention is them being actively engaged in what is going on. So through doing your lectures, it's important to have your students ask questions about what they're confused about, ask them questions to be able to get them engaged in what is being talked about. You will tend to remember things that were talked about in class when you're involved in those questions. And I find that's something that definitely has helped me in my courses here at Alabama State, is when my professors will say, okay, so who did this and why did he do this? That keeps them not entertained, but keeps them engaged in what is going on. So at that point, and they're engaged and they understand what is being taught, they should be able to form what, like, writing notes in their own words, because they have a deep understanding of what they are listening to or what they have been writing down. So this forces connections between what they know and what they are learning. So, according to Learning Center University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, notes are also a great way to organize thoughts. So, by picking out parts that are important to the student, notes become more personalized, leading to a better understanding and the ability to study and recall the information. So, when your notes are, like I said in my example before, of highlighting my parts, that is my form of organization. That is what I'm going to go back and look at and say, okay, I need to remember this for the exam. I need to remember this. So that is my personalized way of organizing my notes. So my first strategy that I'm going to get into is annotating my notes, or annotating notes. So annotation is the adding of notes or symbols to highlight important parts of a text. So I have a little video that will explain what annotation is, and it gives a brief example of annotation. So let me stop sharing my screen here and go. Okay. Okay, so that just gave us an example, not an example. This gave us what annotation is, and this is some ways to annotate. Okay, so we're going to go back to our presentation. That just gave us a little bit about how you can annotate and how annotation is different for everybody. So with the example to our right, we're going to highlight what the thesis is and underline the supporting points to this thesis. So you can write any notes you may have on the topic as well. So I'm going to do this. So the thesis is we shouldn't have homework. So I would highlight that in whatever color you want to highlight it with. We shouldn't have homework. So in my supporting points, I would underline it takes away from family time. That's my supporting point. So when I go back and look at that, I can say, okay, so this is what this means. It's something quick to be able to go back and review what you have written down. So another supporting point, you can't go outside to play, so you will get fat. Okay. We should do our work at school because we have better equipment there. That's another supporting point as to why you shouldn't have homework. So that's just a little bit of an example of annotation. So our next strategy, comprehension-based strategy for note taking, will be sketch notes. So some individuals may need to visualize their ideas to enhance their retention. So in my observations, I am at a magnet school. It's an arts and academic school. So one thing I have learned from who I have been shadowing is you have to be able to gauge who your students are, what they enjoy. So in your more artsy classes, or you see that your students like to draw, you may incorporate sketch notes to be able to keep them engaged in what they're doing. So right here in this picture, we see some arrows, we see light bulbs that, in my opinion, that equals a connection. A light bulb equals connection. It doesn't have to be this huge drawing and a caricature. It could be simply a stick figure like we see in this picture here. So it's just a way to be able to visually see your notes. So this pulls together both the visual and the kinesthetic learning modes, which drives the learner's focus. Tetriot 2024. Our next strategy we'll be going over is Cornell notes. So Cornell notes are one of the most commonly used notes. I have seen this be used a lot in my observations of this 8th grade world history class that I've been in. So during the lectures, the students will listen and Write down main ideas, questions, and keywords that stand out to them in the text. So this is what goes on the left side. This is what goes on the left side of your Cornell notes. On the right side of your notes, you will have your main notes, your normal notes, your things that you need to remember for your exam. So this part of the notes still should be personalized. It doesn't have to be in this strict format. It can be in bullet points, it can be abbreviations, there could be sentences, it could be sketches in there. Whatever is personalized to them that helps them be able to remember what they need to know in preparation for whatever they need the Cornell notes for. At the bottom of the Cornell notes is the summary section. So this right here has to be written out. There cannot be pictures because this is gauging what the student has grasped from their notes. So overall, Cornell Notes make students actively engage with their text. They're not just going and listening to what you're saying in your lecture and writing down the notes verbatim. This should be in their own words. This should show that they are engaged in what they are listening to or reading. This helps students improve their retention in preparation for exams because it is so personalized. Okay, so that's it for my strategies for comprehension-based note taking. So right now we're going to get into a little activity, a little game. So get into groups of 4 and you will have a collection of scenarios. And you are to decide which strategy should be used to help the student take notes or help them retain what they need to retain. So along with these scenarios, there should be a discussion that is had. Each member should contribute to this discussion and describe why they picked the strategy that they picked and the thought process behind why they picked it. So for example, a 7th grade science class is discussing the water cycle. They are watching a video about the process. So they already see these images, they already have a visual over the water cycle. Okay, so what strategy would be a great way for them to grasp the concept of the water cycle and why? So the water cycle, I am no science major. I that's been fleeting. But I would maybe say that a great strategy would be sketch notes because you can use some arrows to show arrows. So we're going to start at, I think it's collection. So there's could be a picture of water, like maybe a river of some sort. So collection, water, evaporating. So collection, an arrow, evaporation, an arrow, condensation up at the top, condensation to precipitation, a picture of water falling back into the source of water. Okay, so all of these arrows are connected. So we're talking about the water cycle, cycle, circle, cycle, circle. So this should be in a circular. So at this point, students are making connections between the pictures. They're making connections between the video that they just watched. Okay, so that's why I think that sketch notes would be perfect because you have that visual locked into your head. Okay, it's a cycle, it's a circle. Okay, so it's one thing after another, collection. It has to start somewhere. Okay, so this would be a great starting point. So this is why I think sketch notes would be a great strategy for this concept. So review and reflection. Annotation. You highlight and you add notes to text that you are looking at, right? Cornell notes. It's a split between keywords, cues, main ideas on the left, actual notes on the right, and the summarization at the bottom. And sketch notes, drawing a visual of notes. So turn to your neighbor and share which strategy stood out to you the most and why. So, me personally, I would say sketch notes is something that really stood out to me because it's out of the ordinary. Because sometimes students need to get out of just the everyday, okay, writing my notes down, and they need a change, they need something to get them engaged. So I think sketch notes is a great way, like drawing is a great way to get out of that normal writing mode. Okay. So reflection. Answer these questions. What is one note-taking strategy you feel most confident in using and why? Number two, how will you adapt these strategies to meet the needs of all your students? Number three, which strategy do you most want to share with your students? Okay. Question and answer time. The floor is now open for any questions. Be free to ask anything. So, and thank you for paying attention to my presentation on comprehension-based note-taking strategies. These are my references that I use. And now I will stop sharing my screen.